I mean by that. Let's just talk about that word, civilization jihad. Where does it come from? It comes from the explanatory memorandum, which was discovered thanks to the actions of one police officer. One police officer doing his job was able to find something that would save the rest of America, hopefully in the near future. Because his one job was in just pulling this one person over who was taking pictures of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge support structure, enabled the police, enabled the FBI and other investigators to get a warrant to search this man's house, and they find 93 bankers' boxes of documents from the North American Muslim Brotherhood hidden in his sub-basement, another basement dug under that. And what does it say? Just one paragraph from that. Understanding the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all that the word means. The Ikhwan must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Sorry, it was by their hands and the hands of the believers, okay? That is made victorious and that is eliminated. Forgive me today. My tongue is twisting. Okay, sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the other hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all the religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and wherever he lands until the final hour comes. And there is no escape from that destiny except for those who choose to slack. But would the slackers and mujahideen be equal? So understanding that the terminology is not my own. It comes from the Muslim Brotherhood on what they declare that they are working on in North America. Today I have IQ Rassooli with me. IQ Rassooli is one of those incredible gentlemen who has written an incredible amount of material. And I say an incredible amount of material. He's written 3 volumes that are highly extensive. They are outstanding. I've only read one, and I have to say I'm kind of amazed. What I like about his book, and why I keep recommending it to people, is that it is written in almost a catechism type style. It is written in a way that enables people to learn the truth and to really know the truth. How does this work? He asks questions and he answers them. That's how it should be. This is what makes things work. So let me tell you this is a little bit about his bio. He left Iraq as a young man to study at university abroad. IQ took advantage of the opportunity to compare the Bible to the Quran. When he discovered, shocked him and set him on a 30-year examination of Quran, Hadith, Arab and Islamic histories, Arab-Israeli conflicts, the Hebrew Bible, New Testament, Zoroastrian religion, pagan Arabian religion, and resolved to dedicate his extensive knowledge to the mission of saving Western civilization by exposing the facts and reality of Islam to Quran ignorant world. And this is what really comes down to. IQ has interviewed over 1,300. He's been on over 1,300 talk show hosts. It's an alias, by the way, guys. Because of his bold indictment of Islam, this places him at considerable risk. So we're not going to ask him his real name. We're just going to be thankful he's here. He's an Iraqi exile, an Arabic speaker, scholar, and author. So this is like our own Usama Dakdak, who's with part of this network. He asserts the Quran is not a holy book. It is a roadmap to total war with Western civilization. So let's give a loud welcome to IQ Rassooli. And thank you for joining us, IQ.
Thank you for having me.
I was I have been reading the first volume of the three that you have released, and I'm disgusted that I hadn't found these earlier. I don't know if it's because I'm in America that I haven't seen these, but IQ is doing a late night from someplace in Europe, and I want to thank you for doing that with us. I I, I read your first volume and I was just mind blown, but I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your journey to the point where you're sharing all this information.
As you said in the preamble in your speech or talk, I left Iraq. I was very lucky. I was born in a family which was what they call secular. They don't go to synagogue, they don't go to church, they don't go to mosque. My father was extremely well educated. In fact, he was educated in India, in Bombay. So when at home we grew up reading books, which is very unusual in the Middle East. Arabs and Muslims rarely read books. And if they read books, it will be propaganda from the Muslim world, anti-Christian, anti-Jew, anti-Hindu, anti-Buddhist, anti-anybody who is not a Muslim. Cut a long story short, when I came to Europe and I was able to access information freely in the libraries, and I started comparing the verses of the Quran. That's what started me. There were Quranic verses which alluded to names in the Bible, like Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Mary, everybody who was important in the Bible. I found out that not a single one of the biblical names appearing in the Quran or the stories related to them had anything to do with the biblical stories themselves. They were concocted. Muhammad literally recreated the verses of the Bible or stories from the Bible and extra-biblical stories and modified them to suit the mind and the brain and the culture of the pagan Arabs. So I decided there is no way on earth anybody can understand what Islam is all about without addressing literally every single item, every single thought process, every single way, manner that the Quran wrote about the non-Muslims. So the 3 volumes, as you said, they start with a question, and I answer it. But how do I answer it? I answer it with chapter and verse from the Quranic sources, from Hadith, from the Arabic sources. This is why when I have over $1.5 million worth of challenges to every human being on the planet to prove me wrong. This is not a gimmick. Nobody in the history of print, nobody in history of television, nobody in history of anything has backed up what he says with financial reward to be proven wrong. I've had the $1.5 million for over 12 years. I haven't lost a dime. I will never lose a dime. In 12 years, I've been begging CAIR, C-A-I-R, the Council of American Islamic Relations, which is a Muslim Brotherhood association. ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, to challenge me in public. Not one of them was willing to do that, not once. Many of my talk shows, the hosts, got in touch with imams in their areas to debate me. Not necessarily on television, even on radio. Not one. Why not one? Because they know if and when they come against me, the chances of them winning a single argument is 0. But when they have a Christian cleric who knows very little about the Quran, who doesn't know even the Arabic language to back himself up, they lie and lie and lie. It's called taqiyya in Arabic. Taqiyya means Allah-sanctioned deception. It allows every single Muslim on earth to deceive every non-Muslim on earth as long as this Muslim is trying to do it to advance the process of Islam and to bring Sharia as the dominant belief system on the planet. So I had to have the books published in Europe. That was in November 2000. just before the 2001, which is the beginning of the 21st century. Not a single publishing company would allow it. All I said in the letter that I sent them, that as a resume of the whole, what I'm trying to do is that in the 21st century, the greatest threat to human civilization is not nuclear weapons, but fundamentalist Muhammadan Islam with or without weapons of mass destruction. So what did I have to do? I had to go to America to pay money. I had to pay money to publish my books. And they are on Amazon. So it's not as if a company in America or a company in Europe was willing to enlighten humanity. No, not one of them was trying to do that. I am not saying it as a regret or anything, not at all. All I'm trying to explain to the listener, there is no money in it for me. I'm not doing it for money. This is not Harry Potter. This is not escapism. These books are heavy reading, very heavy reading. And they're good only for people who are willing to understand Islam, to learn about Islam, and also after learning about Islam to go on the mission of educating other people. I hope I explained myself.
You did quite well. Thank you. I think your books, Lifting the Veil, that series is outstanding. I will be buying the other 2 volumes. So you sold me, and I've been telling people in my audience to buy these books. So please go out there, buy these books. They are outstanding. They are some of the best I have seen to date. I noticed in your first book you address the great apostasy. In the next book I'm working on, it's actually going to be directed straight to social studies teachers, because in America we tell lies about the, quote, Islamic civilization and about Islam when we teach students. Now, I say that we are ordered to tell lies. I refuse to do that. So I'll tell the truth, and I'll say this is what the state wants you to know. And that's how I do it. One of the things I wanted to ask, because when I went through and I'm learning about Islamic history, I got to the point where I discovered some things that just shocked me. And I'm just curious, was there anything that you found when you were studying Islamic history that surprised you?
After studying, you see, the Quran, actually, nobody ever said that, by the way. You can double check me. Mm-hmm. The Quran is Muhammad's production. Nobody revealed anything to Muhammad. He claims that every letter, every verse, every chapter in the Quran were revealed to him by an angel called Jibril, which is supposed to be Gabriel, from Allah. It is inconceivable that any God could have revealed the garbage that is contained in the Quran, the contradictions, the hate-mongering, the war-mongering, the misogyny. Impossible. So I realized after this, a lot of research, that the Quran is Muhammad's production. This is why when I speak about the Quran, when I write about the Quran, I write Muhammad's Quran. I don't know if you noticed this. Muhammad's Quran. Muhammadan Islam. You mentioned the word Islamic civilization. There was never an Islamic civilization. Never. There were civilizations under Islam. There were civilizations that existed in spite of Islam. But there was never an Islamic civilization. Somebody will say, but you're exaggerating. Well, my question to you is this. Was it a Sudani Islamic civilization? An Egyptian one? An Uzbek one? Maybe from Indonesia? What can you say about it? We are not discussing, this is a religious, Islam is a cult belief system, the cult of Muhammad. Why do I say cult? Every male Muslim is mandated, not only mandated, is commanded to follow everything that a human being did called Muhammad bin Abdullah. This is cultism. Muslims wash their genitals, the males, the way Muhammad did. clean themselves the way Muhammad did. They hate the way Muhammad did. They murder and slaughter and rape the way Muhammad did. Muhammad married Aisha Muhammad engaged Aisha when she was 6 years old. And for 3 years he was tying her, that means molesting a child. Then he raped her when she was 9 years old. So what do they tell you, the Muslims? No, he married her. He didn't marry her. She is 9 years old, way below the age of consent. By any standard, even biological, way below the age of consent. He raped her. But she wasn't the only one he raped. He raped quite a lot of women, especially women captured in war. So, where was this civilization? How many people know that when the Arabs came out of the Jazira al-Arabiya, the Arabian Peninsula, in the year 634, 635 AD, they were the least civilized people on the planet? They had no government. They had no army. They had no religion, which are structured like the Greek pagan religion or the Roman pagan religion or any other pagan religion. They didn't have any structure. They had gods, yes. They had 360 gods and goddesses in stone. And the supreme God of all these 360 gods and goddesses was called Allah. So Allah that is mentioned in the Quran, which Muhammad claims is the same as the God of the Bible, is bullcrap. Allah existed in the Arabian Peninsula as the supreme God of the pagan Arabs, of the Quraysh tribe, especially his tribe, centuries before Muhammad was born and centuries before he metamorphosed the God of the pagan Arabs, Allah, into the God of the Bible. That's all there is to it. They had no civilization. They were backward. So what happened? They conquered the Christians and the Jews in Iraq, my country. They conquered the Christians and the Jews in what we call today Syria. There was no Syria. They conquered North Africa. They conquered part of Europe. They conquered India. They conquered part of China. These were civilizations. These were the civilizations that existed. Arabs had no civilization. So what happened? People who converted to Islam from these countries called al-Mawali. Mawali is a person who is, let's say, a Christian or a Jew or a Buddhist who converted to Islam. And they are the ones who started translating from their native languages to the Arabic language. 99.9% of Americans and Europeans don't know this. And I'm not exaggerating. So they fall for the crap coming from the Muslim scholars. There are no Muslim scholars on earth. They don't exist, only in the imagination of Muslims and the warped imagination of the Western media, the liberal leftist garbage people. You can't be a scholar in Islam. Why? Because ilm, which is knowledge, which is mandated in the Quran, and every single Muslim will tell you, the Quran says you have to learn knowledge. Yes, but they don't tell you that the Quran means knowledge only of Islam, only of Quran, and only of Sharia. They don't tell you that. Can I prove what I'm saying? Clock me. Less than 60 seconds. There are 57 Muslim majority states on earth. 1,500 million Muslims. Between all of them, there is not a single university which is accredited anywhere. Not one. I will pay $200,000 to any human being listening, the first one, who can name 10 Muslims, only 10, in the last 600 years, who have contributed anything to the advancement and or betterment of humanity in any field of human endeavor. 200,000. And in the last 600 years, must have been 2,000 million Muslims. Name 10. Can it be done? Name 10 who contributed anything in the Arabian Peninsula in the last 1,400 years. Another $200,000. cannot be done. I don't say these words to brag. This is not a brag. This is a challenge. I don't have time for frivolity. Everything I say is backed up with knowledge. I have said it in my book, and I've said it many times on my radio interviews, that the greatest nightmare, that the four horsemen of the apocalypse of Islam are called knowledge, 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 and knowledge. That's it. Back to you, sir.
Wow. I actually have a couple questions from our chat room, and one is a little surprising. I didn't expect this one. This comes from a gentleman. Nick, his name is Gulf Dogs in the chat room. He says, "Ask why Muslims hate gays but yet enjoy sex with boys." Baki boys come to mind.
I'll tell you, they don't hate gays. It's mandated in the Quran. You see, most of the items which are relevant in the Quran were copied, plagiarized, plundered, pirated, and or perverted from the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. In both the Hebrew Bible and New Testament, homosexuality is forbidden and punishable by death, in both. And he carried forward that one. But he also tells you, see, this is where I'm telling the listeners, the American listeners, why the Quran cannot be divine. It is full of contradictions. Now, if one believes in a God, an omniscient God, there is no way on earth that this God will be contradicting himself again and again and again. It's a contradiction to call him God when he is not knowledgeable. And there are 20, 30, 40 most important contradictions in the Quran. So what does the Quran also says, which is Muhammad, of course, saying it, that his followers, those who convert to Islam, to his belief system, called Islam. By the way, what is Islam? People don't even know what it means. Let me explain it to you. Muslim means anyone who believes in Muhammad and his Sunnah. And Sunnah are the traditions about Muhammad's life. I repeat it again. Muslim means any human being who believes in Muhammad as Rasulullah, as the messenger of Allah, and follows and emulates everything that Muhammad did in his lifetime. These two are the foundations of what Muslims call Sharia. Sharia, by the way, is the path to Allah, the straight path to Allah, which is again Muhammad. According to Muslims, humanity is divided into two distinct and incompatible camps of being either a Muslim or a non-Muslim called kuffar, infidels. That's all there is to it. Dear listeners, calling Islam peaceful and or a religion are two of the most egregious and obscene lies that have ever been insinuated into the human consciousness. Because, first, Islam does not mean peace, since its root verb is aslama, meaning only one thing, submission. Therefore, a Muslim is one who submits to Allah's Sharia. Second, their God Allah is most assuredly not, and I repeat, not the same as the God of Jesus, Moses, and Abraham, the God of the Bible. In a nutshell, every single one of 1.5 billion Muslims is the mortal and eternal enemy of every single human being who is not a Muslim, currently 80% of humanity. So back to the question you asked, why are they condemning homosexuality while having sex with children? Because having sex with children is not the same thing as having consensual sex between men. Muhammad tells his followers, if you follow everything I tell you, if you completely and utterly ignore everything else, just follow. If I tell you go to hell, you go to hell. Why? Because whatever I tell you, if you go to war on my behalf and survive, you will have the plunder. you will have the women of the enemy to rape them, the children to molest them, and to sell them as slaves. But if you die, and when you die, you will go to my paradise. Muhammad's paradise is a whorehouse. Why? Because when they go to paradise, Muhammad's whorehouse version of paradise, they can have boys, they can have girls, they can have women, they can have wine, which are prohibited when they are alive on earth. They have everything that is prohibited on earth in his whorehouse. So what happens? That's why Muslims go on jihad and suicide bombing. The suicide bomber is not doing it for Islam. He's not doing it for Muhammad. He's doing it for Allah. Because he knows when he dies, he will get the 72 virgins, he will get the girls, he wants the boys. You can laugh. And people laugh at this. But the joke is on the people who laugh because the Muslims believe it. And this is why they are doing it. I hope I answered the question.
You answered a couple for me. I was going to ask you to talk about your definition of abrogation, because you did to me it was humorous listening to it. I started reading it, and again, it's you put it out there quite plainly. How can a person call themselves a god when they make such contradictions over and over and over again? I love the simplicity and the logical use of language in the way you explain this. Thank you. I have let's see. Here's my next question. Let's see here. In 2014, a book was by F.W. Burleigh, Muhammad, the world's most notorious prophet, was released. Do you think this is a good description of Muhammad?
Well, first of all, whoever wrote it made a mistake. He called him prophet. You see, people use the words of the Muslims, and every word of the Muslim is a deception. $200,000 says you cannot find a single prophecy by Muhammad that came out to be true. So how is he a prophet? Look, I'm not dismissing the book. I'm dismissing the usage of words. When they say Allah is God, I say no, Allah is not God. Allah is the name of a pagan god. I put it in the context that it is. When they say he is Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah, yes, he is a messenger of Allah because he is Allah. He pretended to be Allah, and he convinced 1.5 billion people in modern times that he is the messenger of Allah. But he is Allah. Nobody revealed anything to Muhammad. Nobody. By the way, nobody ever said that. You can double check me. Nobody in 1400 years came to the simple conclusions that every single letter, word, verse, ayah, and chapter, surah are the result of Muhammad's imagination, the secretions of his warped mind. Nobody. And I challenge any human being listening or reading my book to prove me wrong. Cannot be done. Cannot be done. Look, it might sound arrogant, but I'll say it anyway. There is no human being on planet Earth and no intelligent life outside the solar system who can debate me the subjects of Muhammad, his Quran, his Sunnah, Arab-Islamic history, Arab-Israeli war, anything to do with Islam and the Arabs. No human being can beat me. And I'm dying for somebody to do that, to defeat me. No, I mean it honestly. I wish somebody would come to prove me wrong on anything. Good God, I've got 700 items in my books. I mean, 700 different items. Somebody should find at least one of them wrong. None.
This is the issue that I keep pointing out. You can't call this person a prophet if he really never has a prophecy. And then, I agree 100%. I've had some interesting discussions with people who do not like one of my favorite sources on Islam, which is Ibn Ishaq. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation of his
Ibn
name.
Ishaq is the foremost authority on Islam.
Okay.
By the way, Ibn Ishaq, sorry to interrupt you, but I need to explain to people who are listening. Ibn Ishaq, his grandfather was taken prisoner by the Arabs. He converted to Islam. He was a Christian. His grandson wrote the book 140 years after Muhammad was dead. But it was the first and most truthful biography of Muhammad. Nothing exists equal to Ibn Ishaq. So go on. Sorry to interrupt you.
This is what I'm getting at. So I've had Muslims say, well, that's not a trusted authority. But, yeah.
Sorry,
I said, okay, that's why Muslims continue to quote him, right? That's my response.
By the way, every hadith, Bukhari hadith, Muslim hadith, Abu Majah hadith, Tirmidhi hadith, all of them depend on Ibn Ishaq. All of them. They have to quote from Ibn Ishaq. But Muslims deceive. This is what I said. Taqiyya, taqiyya, taqiyya. Is deception, deception, deception. Even when the verses are in front of you in the Quran, the Muslim Imam will try to tell you, oh, no, you're reading it wrong. No, you're not reading it wrong. He is lying to you. Not reading it wrong. It's so important, this concept of taqiyya. Every single human being who is not a Muslim should understand it. And the taqiyya deception started with a verse. Again, I'm going to quote to you. I'm going to recite to you so that people who are listening can Google it at the same time. Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 28. I'm reciting. Let not the believers take for friends or helpers unbelievers. That means, let not Muslims take people who are not Muslim. If any do that, that means if any Muslim does that, in nothing will there be help from Allah, except by way of precaution that you may guard yourself from them. In Arabic, the word is tattaqu, tattaqu. But Allah cautions you to remember Himself, for the final goal is Allah. What does He say? This is a verse, simple verse. It says a Muslim, when he is in a minority, like Muslims in America are a minority. Muslims in Europe, although in great numbers, they're still a minority. For as long as they are a minority, they have every right to deceive the majority who are not Muslim. By every means possible. Literally, by every means possible. Islamic law allows it. I'll give you an example. And you can check it again. Everybody listening, double check me. I always say double check me. Every single imam on earth recites a verse from the Quran which sounds beautiful. It sounds literally peaceful and elegant and spiritual. But they're lying because they don't recite the complete verse. I will recite the verse the way they do it. Al-Ma'idah chapter 5 verse 32. Allah says, if anyone slew a person, unless it be for murder or for spreading mischief in the land, it would be as if he slew the whole people, that means the whole world. And if anyone saved a life, a single life, it would be as if he saved the life of the whole people, means the whole world. Willfully and with malice aforethought, the Imams deceive the Quran ignorant people into believing that Islam is a peaceful religion. But they're not reciting the beginning of the verse, which is in reality addresses the Israelites, not the Arabs. Now, I will quote to you the complete verse. Al-Ma'idah chapter 5 verse 32. The Quran says, on that account, we, Allah, ordained for the children of Israel that if anyone slew a person, unless it be for murder or for spreading mischief in the land, it would be as if he slew the whole people. And if anyone saved a life, it would be as if he saved the life of the whole people. They lie. And they lie to your face because they don't expect you to have read the Quran. Lying is mandated everywhere in the Quran, in Islam, everywhere. A Muslim can sit with a Christian and eat pork, prohibited, completely prohibited in the Quran. He will drink wine with him, completely prohibited. But for as long as he's trying to deceive the Christian into doing something that will advance Sharia and Islamic traditions, he will do it, and is forgiven forever. Ladies and gentlemen, when the virus of the Quran, and the Quran is a virus, infects a victim or a host, it instantly, I repeat, instantly destroys the areas of brain dealing with logic, followed immediately by the eradication of areas dealing with compassion and mercy, turning the dupe into a zombie, a living, dead killing machine. Ebola, compared to the Quran, is like comparing Mother Teresa to Hitler. Back to you, sir.
Wow. I do want to tell you, one of our listeners today is Annie Ubellis, and she wants me to let you know she is listening. I guess you were on a panel with her recently.
She's lovely. Yes. We are together sometimes with J.J. McCarthy.
Yes. And she also does Southern Sense Talk Radio on this show, on Blog Talk Radio. She wanted me to make sure I said hello. Don't. So I'd done that.
No, not at all.
I have one big question for you, and to me it's big because, I know the answer to this one, but I want someone to answer this who has the knowledge of Arabic and stuff and other knowledge that I don't yet have. My question is this: is in America some school principals, which you might call headmasters in England, France, wherever, invite Muslims and hold a hijab day. What do you think of this? And what is the truth about hijabs?
Well, I'll tell you something. Any American in government, in the clergy, in politics, or in education especially, who tries to advance in any way, shape, or form Islam should be removed from office instantly. And I mean instantly. First of all, the word hijab. Every Muslim woman takes other non-Muslims to court because they discriminated against them for not wearing the hijab or for wearing the hijab. $200,000 says no human being on planet Earth, Arabic speaker or not, can find the word hijab in the Quran describing the wearing of a woman of anything in any way, shape, or form. $200,000. The word hijab is mentioned in the Quran 4 times. All 4 times it means a separation, a curtain. It doesn't mean the covering of the head. Never did the covering of the head. And one of the most remarkable things in the Bukhari hadith, one of the traditions, the Aisha, the child bride of Muhammad, says, and it's in Bukhari hadith, says that Umar ibn Khattab, the companion of Muhammad who became the Khalifa, second Khalifa, always insisted that the women who converted to Islam or were forced to be Muslims to wear the hijab. And she says Muhammad never forced us to wear the hijab. That means his wives. What more can I tell you? It's bullcrap. It is subjugate women. In Islam, every female, whether females of Muslims or females or non-Muslims, every female is one little step higher up the ladder of evolution than domestic animals. I can't put it in any other way more direct than this. Back to you, sir.
Could you just say that passage again about the veil? And I wanted to go back to that because to me, this is extremely important because I'm a teacher. I'm a public school teacher. That's my full-time job for a few more years until I retire. But this is extremely important because we have so many stupid administrators out there that think this is the cool thing to do. This is, this is sharing and learning about other cultures. And I want to know the exact passage about the where Muhammad. Aisha says Muhammad never told us that again.
Well, I've got to find it for you. I mean, I don't remember everything.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I've got to find it for you. But it is there.
Yeah.
If I say it's there.
I believe that. My goal is just I want to put this stuff out. I'm having difficulty right now because I see that they're inviting, like we have one of our headlines today that I'll be reading. I have some news headlines I do after my guests are go off, but one of these would be the University of Houston promoting genocide and praising Hitler. This is by the Students for Justice in Palestine, which is basically Hamas in America, also just like CARE. And they're promoting, of course, they promote their Hitler Youth Day every year, and they're just, it's just insane. I'm going to be talking about this. An excellent article by Sarah Dogan on Front Page Magazine. But this stuff comes into our public, comes from the colleges. It makes its way down to the public schools. That's how they got into America. I'm not sure exactly how they started in Europe, but in America, they came in, the Muslim Brotherhood came in straight into the colleges, and that wormed its way into public schools, and that's been pushing into society. And, of course, in all this time, they have been infiltrating the government on different levels. So that's what my book is about, is that. And then the third book I'm putting out is a simple history of Islam, just from the historical point of view, ignoring everything, quote, religious, just to get the historical history out, and that should be mind-blowing enough. I know my boss was shocked when he actually learned what was in Ibn Ishaq's books. So that, because that's what a lot of my book concentrates on, is one of the first and foremost authorities of Islam, Ibn Ishaq. I think he's probably one of the top dogs as far as communicating what Muhammad really did and said, and it infuriates people when you do that, because then you have to include things like the, what do they call them, satanic verses? Yes.
By the way, the reason the Muslims, the Palestinian, so-called Palestinian, by the way, there was never a Palestinian state and the Palestinian people.
Thank you.
And $200,000. By the way, I'm on your show now. I'm going to have over $2 million worth of challenges. $200,000 says no human being can find the word Palestine as a state and Palestinians as a people in recorded history in the last 6,000 years before 1964. $200,000. Find the Palestinians. But most important of all, in my chapter 42, I don't know if you have read that one, I compare Muhammad's Quran with Hitler's Mein Kampf. Identical. Hitler copied Muhammad, not the other way around. I compare verses from the Quran with verses from Mein Kampf, and they are identical. The hate mongering, the racism, the intolerance, identical, not similar, identical. Both of them, Muhammad and Hitler, were megalomaniacs. Both of them were psychopaths. Both of them wanted to dominate the world. Both of them were mass murderers. Whether they killed by themselves or through other people doesn't matter. So, when you spoke and you said about the Palestinians, but what are the Palestinians? Mass murderers. It was the Palestinians who started hijacking commercial aircraft. Did you know that? In the 1970s.
Yes.
It was the Palestinians, not anybody else, only the Palestinians. They always start with the Jews or with Israel. But it never ends with the Jews and Israel. It started with the Jews in Europe. Did it end up with the Jews in Europe? The answer is no. 6 million Jews were exterminated, but 19 million Christians were also exterminated. It never ends with the Jews. This is a fact of life. They can start it against the Jews. For example, Israel, after the first few hijackings of aircraft, and one of them was their own aircraft, instituted a policy whereby the door to the cabin was made impregnable. In the whole of Europe and America, nobody copied them. The Americans and Europeans were so arrogant that it will never happen to them. 9/11 would never have happened if the Americans followed the Israelis by having the cockpit door impregnable. They didn't do that. 9/11 would never have happened. And you still haven't got it. You have to make the cockpit impregnable. But they didn't do that. They started terrorism against the Jews and Israel. But now it's in Europe. Did you know that it is safer for a soldier, a French soldier, in Afghanistan to stay alive than a French person in Paris to stay alive from terror? This is the latest report coming. More French people were murdered in Paris in 1.5 years than soldiers who were in Afghanistan for the last 10 years who were French.
Wow.
It is. It's a fact. We are now, we non-Muslims in Europe and America, are in a greater threat than if we had a gun and fighting the Muslims. And what do the leftists want us to do? No more guns. Really? The same leftists who have security people taking care of the areas they live in with alarm systems, they want the not so rich Americans not to have arms. My question to anybody who doesn't want a gun, and my question to anybody who doesn't want the borders, why do you have a home with a door? Why do you have windows? Why do you have locks? Why do you have gates surrounding your house? Take them down. But will they take them down? Those hypocrites? No. The news media in America and the news media in Europe are the worst enemies of the American people and the European people. They are more dangerous than ISIS. Why are they more dangerous than ISIS? ISIS tells you bluntly, we shall force you to convert to Islam or shall exterminate you. Plain, not complicated. The news media tells you, no, no, no. The ISIS people are perverting Islam. That's not true, by the way. The followers of ISIS and their associates like Boko Haram, like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like Al-Shabaab, and 10,000 other terrorist organizations are the most perfect Islamic entities. I'll tell you how much perfect it is. While Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda followed the Quran word by word, ISIS and its associates followed the Quran letter by letter, comma by comma, and dot by dot. They are the most perfect Islamic entity. They're not perverting Islam. The people who tell you they are perverting Islam are the ones who are lying. That's called taqiyya again. What do you think?
This has been outstanding. I want to say thank you. And is there a way people can follow you? Or is there some place they can contact you or follow you for?
Honestly, anybody who's interested, just Google Al-Rassooli. It's so simple. ALRASSOOLI. And you will have a paradise of information. And it is paradise. Not Muhammad's whorehouse version, the real paradise, because it will educate you. And the more people who learn, the more people who will believe in what Trump is doing. People who are against Trump are clueless, brain-dead people. No question about it. Those who talk about, we don't want anybody. Of course, you have to have borders. Every nation on earth throughout history wanted borders. Even animals have got borders. Did you know that? Every animal has got a border. An animal will pee around his area. That becomes his territory. Anybody crosses that territory will be an enemy. humans are not different. We are animals. True, we're thinking animals. We're supposed to be much more intelligent than the other animals. Really, we're not that intelligent. We've gone through wars of terror, wars of extermination, World War I, World War II, and others before that. That's not an indication of intelligence. And we are heading to a third world war, by the way. We are heading. Can you believe Obama and Clinton's sold America down the drain to both Korea and Iran? Both of them. Trump only inherited the disaster, and he has to deal with what he inherited. It isn't his fault. He had nothing to do with politics. We in Europe and America were sold out by our leaders. Literally sold out by our leaders. Back to you, sir.
Wow, you're really powerful with the. I mean, it sounds like it's what I keep saying, and one of the reasons why the name for this show is Civilization Jihad Awareness. I want people to be educated. I want people to learn the real truth, and it scares me sometimes that people are willing to accept the lies, and that's what these are. They're simply lies. And like you're saying, Takia, over and over again, it's just mind-blowing that people accept it. I have one more question, and this will have to be the last one. One of the guys in the chat room wanted to know your take on our past President Obama, since you are as knowledgeable as you are.
I don't think he wants to really hear what I think. There aren't enough expletives to describe what Obama was. Obama was anti-American. Obama was a Muslim, and he's a Muslim. It doesn't matter he went to church. By the way, the church he used to go to for 20 years, by Pastor Wright, cursed America, cursed the Christians, cursed the Jews. For 20 years he was listening to this garbage, and you're telling me nothing stuck in his brain? Everything Obama did was to destroy America. When he left, America was left decimated, literally. You have more divisions now, ethnically, racially, politically, educationally, and religiously than ever before in your history. Not even under the slave time were you so divided. That's his legacy. I despised the man before he was elected. I knew he was a Muslim before he was elected, and I can prove it twice. He had an interview with George Stephanopoulos before he was elected. You remember that one?
Yeah, that's what I point people to every time.
Yeah, he said in public that he was glad that John McCain, who was opposing him, did not raise the issue of his Islamic faith. George told him, "You mean Christian." Bullcrap.
He said specifically, "My Muslim faith."
Absolutely. Another one, in one of his talk tours, he said, "I have been to 57 states and more to go." How is it conceivable that a man who was raised in America, supposedly, an American citizen, supposedly, a senator, supposedly, not know there are only 50 states? Why did he say 57? Because there are 57 Muslim majority states in the IOC. When I heard these two, I knew America was in for trouble. And if you listen to all my shows, every single one of them, I never said anything but the Muslim traitor-in-chief in the White House. That was Obama.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful time. I want to say thank you for being very patient and coming back this week. You're an outstanding
my
guest.
pleasure.
I hope to have you back sometime in the future. This is just great.
All you need to do is email me where and when.
Well, we'll definitely have to do that. Thank you for joining us. It's been an honor. I really have to thank you for all that you're doing.
God
Please
bless you.
don't
You take
stop.
care.
Please don't stop.
Take
Thank
care.
you. God bless.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Wow. I can't tell you how many little things, little bells and whistles. I have to go back and listen to the show, too, because there's some things he said, some quotes that he gave that I just have to go back and listen to. I'm going to be putting this up on YouTube as soon as I can, just because he's just that powerful. The little bit of information, the time he shares, wow. I don't know what else to say. I'm going to be having to go back and listen to this myself. And when I read his first book, I mean, I heard about it. Somebody pointed it out to me. Actually, yeah, there's a friend who actually pointed it out to me, and I'm looking at his book and like, oh my gosh, I have to get him on the show. Not only do I have to get him on the show, I have to see if I can get him to share even more. And then I realized he doesn't have just one book, he has 3. They all have the same name, but it's Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. His last book, Volume 3, I've only gotten through Volume 1. I do intend to buy both more volumes. I will tell you, buy them. They are powerful.